Update 27.2 arrived today. In this video I will be mainly looking at the class changes, but I'll just quickly go through some of the other important stuff. You have Helm Steep, level 95 level cap has arrived to the legendary worlds. You can now do epic battles for fun, yay. The Rohan housing is now available, which is pretty cool. And except for the class changes, there's not a lot of stuff. The character race change is coming soon. It's still not out. It should be very soon. And also, the enrage timer for Shelob has changed for all tiers except for tier 3. Tier 2 is now 1 minute shorter, and tier 4 and 5 has been increased by 1 minute and 2 minutes. But like I said, I'm gonna take a look at all the changes to the classes, so I'll get into that. The Bjorning have some minor work, some stuff in blue line. Thunderous Roar base cooldown has been reduced to 45 seconds. For burglars, only one change. The wound effect applied by the Enrage from Clever Retort has been rebalanced. It was buggy and I believe it was being buffed by Tactical Mastery, which made the bleed really OP, but it should be fixed now. For Captain, there's also some minor stuff, but the big thing is the rework of the taunts. It's quite a rework. It's a lot different than it used to be. Just looking through this really quickly, your improved threatening shot has become another skill, which is Elendil's Roar, and it's now granted by trading yellow you get Elendil's Roar. The base cooldown is 60 seconds. Your threatening shout replaces your strong voice, which was the second line in the yellow trait, and you can now trade threatening shout if you're in red and blue to get a little bit of a taunt. Elendil's Fury no longer makes Blade of Elendil a force taunt, but instead it has an effect on Elendil's Roar, where it reduces the cooldown and increases the numbers of targets. So let's take a look. You can see that if you trade yellow, you have skills earned, Elendil's Roar, a 40 meter range taunt, 6 targets, 10 meter radius. This is pretty much improved threatening shout, but changed into a different skill. And if we start trading, you can see that threatening shout is now on the second line. It is no longer making your taunt AoE, it's just threatening shout, a single target force taunt. So as you can see, Captain still has 3 taunts. You have Grave Wound, which is unchanged, it's the same as before. Your threatening shout, it's the same as before, 15-second cooldown. The only difference is that it's not AoE. You can't trade it for AoE, it's only single target now. And you have your new Elendil's Roar. And if you trade Elendil's Fury, it reduces the cooldown and increases the max targets. So pretty much you have a really powerful AoE taunt here. 30-second cooldown, 10 targets with a 10 meter radius. That's really strong. So I would say for sure the Cappy got an upgrade for their taunts and their aggro management. Champions, they now have another AoE force taunt, which is really needed for champ to have more taunts. I think this is a good addition for champ, especially for blue line. The only problem is sometimes you want to use Horn of Champion as a yellow or a red champ, then that's gonna now be a force taunt, which might cause problems. But for blue line, I think it's a good change. Just looking at the skill, you trade it in blue, Horn of Champions. And Deafening Horn now increases the targets by 2 and 4 for 2 ranks, which will make the skill having 10 targets, AoE taunt with a 30-second cooldown. So pretty much the same idea as the Captain taunt for the champion. Much needed AoE taunt. You still have true heroics, but that's a 2-minute cooldown. It was way too long. But now blue champ aggro should be okay. For Guardian, challenge cooldown is now reduced by Bellow trait. If you trade into blue, you get down to Bellow. It'll now reduce the cooldown of challenge. So it will go from 1 minute if you trade all points into this. Challenge will now be 30 seconds. So it seems to me that they're trying to make the AoE taunts a 30-second cooldown across the board. Which is fine, I think, but I feel like 30 seconds might be a bit too short. I kind of wish they kept it at 1 minute. So it made it a bit challenging to manage your taunts. But now I think keeping aggro will be really easy with this change. Two big changes for Hunter. The skill Blindside is now a ranged immediate skill with a single attack hook. The cooldown has been increased to 18 seconds. Still, it means Hunter now has a ranged interrupt and also an immediate skill which can interrupt animations. There's also been a change to corruption removal for Hunter. Merciful Shot no longer removes corruptions, but now instead Blood Arrow removes corruptions. Just looking at the skill, Blood Arrow now removes corruptions, which means you now have Blood Arrow on a 15-second cooldown, as well as Dazing Blow on a 20-second cooldown, which will increase Hunter's corruption removal quite a bit. Let's take a look at the Blindside skill. It's really immediate, it's gonna go off right away. It's good. Hunters now have a reliable ranged interrupt. For Lore Master, there's quite a big buff, I would say. Blinding Flash is now immediate. This means that Blinding Flash can be used to interrupt animations. For example, your Frost Lore, which is really long. You can just take a look at what it can look like. You do your Fire Lore and your Frost Lore. A really long animation, but now you can do it like this. Fire Lore, Frost Lore, Blinding Flash, which is really fast. It's a pretty significant buff for an initial LM rotation. Getting that Frost Lore up like 2 seconds faster and getting into your other stuff. If you learn to time this well, you can do it really fast. And obviously any other skill that has a long animation, you can also interrupt with the Blinding Flash, which is pretty cool. Good quality of life change for LM. For Minstrel, all versions of Piercing Cry are now immediate. So instead of the slight animation delay you might feel before, it's now going to be instant. Runekeeper has some changes. Their main interrupt skill, Final Word, has had its cooldown reduced from 30 to 20 seconds. And they also got a new skill called Speak No Evil, which removes corruption. So RK corruption removal has been improved. Looking at the skills, your interrupt skill is now 20-second cooldown, which is good. 30 seconds is quite a while for your main interrupt skill. And as before, it removes the corruption from the target, but always one. And the new skill, Speak No Evil, has a 20-second cooldown, and it works like most corruption removal skills, removes 1 tier up to 3 different corruptions effects. So pretty much RK's got a nice little buff for corruption removal, which was needed because they were severely lacking in that department. And finally for Warden, looking at the bottom here, your Defiant Challenge has been increased cooldown from 20 to 30 seconds, keeping in line with the other tanks' AoE taunt, which is 30 seconds. So that looks like they're going with the AoE taunt being 30 seconds across the board. Warning Shot, which is your Javelin taunt, cooldown has been decreased from 45 to 10 seconds. Really good change, really needed for Warden tanking. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done for Warden, Blue Warden. This taunt's cooldown was way too long. 10 seconds is about right for a single target taunt. Some minor stuff, but the big change is the new skill called Shield Slam. It's instant, interrupts inductions, and has a cooldown of 20 seconds. We can hop into the game. Looking at the skill, it looks just like Shield Smash for Guardian, which is kind of funny. We're stealing Guardian skills now. Poor Guardians. So pretty much you have a 20-second cooldown, which interrupts. A much needed change for Warden. You no longer have to build a gambit to interrupt, which is your boot. But you now have a skill that can interrupt reliably without building a gambit. But the big thing about this is that it's immediate, which gives Warden quite a few options. For example, you can interrupt your range resounding animation like this. Makes it instant and also applies the bleed. And there's probably a lot of things that Wardens can experiment and try out. That's going to be interesting to see how the best Wardens use this skill. Only time will tell, but a much needed skill for Warden and a good change. And that's it for me. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe, join my Discord, and I will see you in the next one.